How to select the best television for you. If you are in a market for television and don't know how to select the one which is right for you, then you have come to just the right place. Welcome to the mother of all TV guides. Enough of narcissism. Let's start the guide right away. But before we do that, let me tell you that this same guide will be available in writing on my website. Now buckle up. It is a long ride, but your TV deserves this. Okay, so what is the most important part of the TV? Obviously, it's a display, you dummies. So what are the right ingredients for this most important part of your TV? Let's talk about the first ingredient, which is panel type. Three major standards in the market. First is LED backlit LCD, which also has subtypes, which we will discuss at the end of this topic. LED backlit LCD is also known as LED only. So to avoid confusion, we will address it as the LED. Then there is a QLED, which is quantum dot LED, and also the part of LCD brigade, but differentiating enough. And lastly, there is OLED, which stands for organic LED. LED panel is the most common and available in almost any budget TV. QLED is sort of middle ground. It is the brightest of the bunch but does not have the deeper black levels of OLED, but still, QLED is better than standard LED TVs. Now OLED is the gold standard of the panels until the microLED sweeps the market, that is, but you do not need to worry about that in 2020. It is a few years away from becoming mainstream. For now, if you have a high budget, OLED is to go for. QLED is to go for if you have a very bright room, and LED TV is for everything else. Now let's talk about the subtypes of LED displays. Two subtypes are popular with TV brands: IPS panel and VA panel. The IPS panel has better viewing angles and VA panel has much wider contrast, which results in deeper black, but viewing angles are limited. So it is win some lose some situation here. Prefer IPS if you have a wider space. If we discount viewing angles, then VA panel is better compared to IPS panel. Heck, even some QLED TVs from Samsung also uses VA panels. Generally brands don't mention this, but inquire about it if you want a specific panel. Now let's shed some light on the brightness now. The panel needs to be bright enough for a full day of sunlight variation. If it is not, then picture will feel washed out in the bright room or when direct light is on TV. Brightness is measured in nits. Typically, 1 nit is equal to the amount of light of one candle in 1 square meter area. Confusing? Don't think too much about it. Just remember, higher the nits, the brighter the panel will be. Generally, 250 to 350 nits is for budget TV, 400 to 600 something nits is for mid-range TV, and high-end TV should go about 800 to 1000 something nits in peak brightness. Screen brightness is important to achieve HDR, which we will cover later in this guide. Next, let's measure panel size and resolution. There is one argument that if you are at a particular distance, then buy this resolution and that size. If you ask me, I say bigger is better, forget the rest. I mean, who doesn't like big TV? Okay, if you still want to follow that practical advice, I will show you the chart after we cover the resolution. Also, keep in mind, the bigger the panel is, the higher the resolution should be. Period. No arguments here, okay? Now let's talk about the resolution. 4 common standards for today's flat screen TV: 8K, 4K, Full HD and HD. So what does it mean? It is the total pixel count of your screen. It determines how sharp your picture will look. Let's take 4K for example. It has 3840 by 2160 pixels for a 16 by 9 TV. It means it has 3840 pixels in width and 2160 pixels in height. Combining all these dots forms an image on your TV. 4K is common around 25,000 rupees and above TV, and it is the resolution you should go for if your budget permits. Other resolutions you can see in this slide here. From these resolutions, 8K is too expensive in 2020, so forget about it. Only a limited number of models are available in 8K anyway. Full HD is common between 10,000 to 25,000 rupees TV. HD is for below 10,000 rupees TV. I would say avoid HD screen if you can. Full HD is the minimum you should opt for if you are on a tight budget. Here is the chart which combines the size, the resolution and the distance. Feast your eyes, people. Who am I to say otherwise? Okay, enough of it. Take a screenshot or you can go to my website for the image. Let's explore the dynamics of high dynamic range, or HDR in short. It is a kind of contrast parameter. I will assume you know what contrast is for the sake of keeping this guide short while covering all the latest mumbo jumbo. In short, it is the difference between the brightest dot and the darkest dot in your panel at the same time. Lower the contrast, the more picture will feel washed out, like pale looking. And higher the contrast, the more your picture will look richer. So what is HDR? It takes this concept of contrast a bit further, like how bright a bright part of your TV can be without affecting the black part. This will create more lifelike scene on TV. There are 4 major types of HDR, which is HDR10, HDR10 Plus, Dolby Vision and HLG. So HDR is must for today's televisions. So definitely look for this parameter when you are purchasing a TV. Now HDR10 is your baseline, and HDR10 Plus is supported by the upper mid-range TVs, and Dolby Vision is supported by upper mid-range and premium TVs. HLG is kinda HDR for live TV broadcast, not available in India yet. See, the HDR scene is messy. Let me tell you why. To achieve HDR, generally you need to have 1000 nits and above peak brightness, but budget TV, which comes with only 300 nits brightness, also claims HDR support. So not all HDR TVs have the same standards, Your content and streaming app all should have HDR support with your TV to achieve this. I know I'm here to make your buying decision simpler, but in this case, it is what it is. Keep these points in mind if you want best HDR results. Number 1 of them is high brightness, like about 1000 something nits of peak brightness to achieve proper HDR. Second is your panel needs to support wider color gamut with depth of 10 bit. We will cover this in later part of the video. Third is if you are streaming, then your streaming app should support your TV for HDR. Let's say Netflix. Now Netflix may not detect your budget TV as HDR TV just because your brand says so. Make sure with the vendor if your favorite app supports HDR with your TV or not. Fourth is the content should be in HDR. Not all the TV shows on Netflix are in HDR. You will see the HDR or Dolby Vision symbol next to their description if your content supports HDR. Let's explore the zones of dimming zone. The LCD and QLED panel does not light itself. It needs a light source behind that panel to light the panel. That light is LED. That is why LCD panels with LED lights are simply referred to as LED TV. OLED does not need backlight because each pixel of OLED can light itself. That is why OLED can achieve superior contrast than other two. So this dimming zone concept does not apply to OLED. It is vastly superior to this. Now let's get back to the local dimming. Some LED panels are edge lit. It means it has LED arrays in its border to shine the light on the display panel from behind. So it is hard to achieve proper local dimming in edge-lit TVs. In the backlit panel, LED arrays are available right behind the panel. Many LED lights are available behind the panel, and how many of them can turn themselves off individually, that decides the local dimming zone. More the dimming zones, the better the contrast. Let's say TV has a 50 local dimming zones. It means it divides the LED light arrays into 50 groups, which can turn on and off individually, which in turns help achieve higher contrast. So you will have to make sure your TV has full array local dimming zone support for the sake of dear-old contrast. Let's paint the picture on the color gamut on color depth now. To achieve proper HDR, the panel needs to support wider color gamut, and to display all those colors in depth, color depth needs to be 10 bit at least. Let's break down the color gamut first. Standard color gamut is sRGB color gamut. sRGB is your reference point because all good displays in the market have sRGB color coverage. You don't need to understand what sRGB is, just remember it is your base point. DCI-P3 is what we call generally wider color gamut. DCI-P3 is around 26% larger than sRGB. So sRGB roughly equals 79.4% of DCI-P3 coverage. That means anything above 80% DCI-P3 coverage and the brand will say it has a wider color gamut. Let's say the brand claims it has a 90% DCI-P3 coverage. Now you know what it means compared to the standard sRGB. Obviously, it goes without saying that 100% DCI-P3 coverage would be best any day. Now let's break down the color depth in a simple manner. You see, standard panel is 8-bit. It is your reference point. An 8-bit means it can produce 16 million color shades of any color gamut, whether it is sRGB or DCI-P3. Whereas 10-bit panel can produce 1000 millions of color shades, much more than 8-bit panel. As I said before, to achieve the proper effect of HDR, you need both wider color gamut and 10-bit panel. Bear in mind that 8-bit panel can also claim HDR TV title, but a TV with wider color gamut, 10-bit depth, full array local dimming zone panel or OLED panel, and about 1000 nits of peak brightness works wonder with HDR. Look, I know it's hard to digest color gamut and color depth at first. Go through this topic again if you feel like. Let's rate the refresh rate next. Generally, today's television panel has 60 Hz refresh rate. It means it can display a maximum of 60 FPS. FPS stands for frames per second. Pretty self-explanatory, but still it says that 1 second has 60 individual frames in it. For reference, typically a movie is shot in 24 FPS. Now some TV in the market also comes with 120Hz refresh rate, which can reduce motion blur. You can take benefit of this high refresh rate in sports and games, which has high speed movements. Now double check if you want 120Hz TV, because there is a lot of fake high refresh rate marketing going on. Bear in mind though, your sports events and game needs to be in 60 or 120 FPS as well to achieve better results. I would say 60 Hz is fine for everybody though. One side note about that motion smoothing. Movies have high speed action scenes as well. Still, movies are meant to be consumed in 24 FPS only. Some televisions increases this frame rate to 60 FPS by so-called motion smoothing. That is why you may notice the scene is extra smooth and looks weird, which is not the way filmmakers intended you to watch the movie. You can turn this off in the setting though. I will link the article about this if you want to go into the details. One side note about gaming as well. If you are a serious gamer, then only refresh rate parameter is not sufficient. You will need to look at response time, input lag, FreeSync or G-Sync support, etc. But this is not a gaming TV guide, so maybe some other day. Let's talk ports now. Your TV should have at least HDMI 2 port, minimum 3 in numbers, and one of them should have ARC support. ARC stands for Audio Return Channel. And HDMI 2.1 is preferable if your TV supports HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision, and eARC if you want sophisticated audio setup like Dolby Atmos. USB 2.0 or USB 3.0 port, minimum 2 in numbers for connecting accessories like mouse, keyboard, USB drive or even external hard disk. One optical audio or SPDIF for connecting soundbar and stuff. But if your soundbar or speaker system supports ARC, then connect it with HDMI ARC connection. One AV port if you want to connect older devices with composite cable, and one RF connection port if you are still using an old cable connection. One AUX or headphone jack, also for connecting audio. One Ethernet port for wired internet connection. Also, your TV should support Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Generally, TVs have old standards like Bluetooth 4.2 and Wi-Fi 2.4 GHz. It is okay, but it would be better if it can support Wi-Fi 5 GHz and Bluetooth 5 and above. Let's face the interface now. Nowadays, almost all TVs are smart. Some have a Linux or Android based interface. Some have Android TV like Sony, OnePlus and Mi TV. Samsungs and LGs have their own interface. Make sure all of it has support for your favorite apps like Netflix, Prime Video, Hotstar, Z5, etc. Chromecast support is also something you should look for if you want to cast your Chromecast supported phone and laptop content on your TV. There is also Wi-Fi Direct, which mirrors your phone or laptop screen directly on your TV. Now, just like your laptop or phone, your TV also has a processor. Most of them comes with quad-core A53 processor coupled with 1, 2 or 3 GB of RAM. If possible, go with a minimum 2 GB of RAM model for smoother UI operation. It also has storage for those apps and other stuff. 8 GB and 16 GB are common. You can use your USB drive or external hard drive for extra storage if you want. If you like TV but don't like the interface, then don't be put off by it. There is always something like a Fire TV Stick or Android TV box. Generally, this device is cost in the range of 3 to 5,000 rupees. So if you are buying a budget TV, then in that case, this may not make sense. Let's hear something about the speaker, shall we? Due to flat TV design, all it can accommodate is a box speaker. Now the box speaker may be loud, but it lacks clarity. Basically, they are okay-ish. Some televisions have an inbuilt sound bar to improve this condition. An external sound bar or speaker system is your friend if you want your dialogues to be crisp and your movie sound effects to be cinematic. Make sure your TV has a Dolby Audio decoder if you want to install a Dolby Audio speaker system. Now let's draw the picture of TV's design. Remember, TV is a panel and that is what you will see head on. Most you can do to TV's design is to reduce bezels or border around the display. Make it from metal, maybe, some fancy color lights here and there, etc. etc. Look, aesthetic is a purely subjective matter. Let's decide on how beautiful the picture quality is when it is on rather than how beautiful TV looks when it is off. That being said, brand will try to make their TV design look good anyway. So pick your specification and TV that will match that will not look bad per se. Let's cover the TV remote in the remotest part of the video. Make sure the remote is Bluetooth one so you can operate it from any direction. Voice assistant support is also necessary for faster inputs. Some remote operates like an air mouse for faster selection and typing because it is a pain to write and select anything with a TV remote. Some TVs come with two remote, one is a smart one and one is a dumb one. Some brands also provide phone apps to work like remote with some advanced functionality. You can use that as well if you don't like the remote. That's all you need to know about the remotes. That's it guys. These are the major parameters you need to look at if you want to buy the best TV which also suits your needs. Look my friend, TV is a long time purchase. I know, I say it for many products, but this one is like really long, like the mother of all longness in tech world. We are talking about more than 10 years average if you are not insisting on bleeding edge tech. If it is an option, I would say go to the physical store with a copy of my guide of course, which will be available on my website at your disposal to print it out. Go with it and feel the picture quality yourself or with your family. Compare different parameters I mentioned in this guide with your own eyes and ears. Then make a decision. Happy shopping people. Please like if you think I have been helpful. Share it with your friends and lastly, subscribe for more useful content like this. If you still have any query, ask me in the comments. I am also active on Twitter. The link will be in the description. If you think I missed something important, hit me up in the comments or tweet me. That's been it folks. Thank you for watching. See you next time.